Hello guys, welcome to Business Curve. Let's start today business and finance news of the world. So the first news is, Americans were worried about the economy even before inflation exploded, Fed survey shows. A Federal Reserve survey released Monday showed Americans already growing nervous about the economy in the latter part of 2021. Just 24% thought conditions were good or excellent, down from 50% in 2019. Expectations also declined for government aid programs as well as for the prospects of a higher federal minimum wage. So the next news is, Bitcoin could fall to $8,000, a more than 70% plunge, Guggenheim's Maynard says. Bitcoin could drop further and fall to $8,000 from its current levels, predicted Guggenheim Chief Investment Officer Scott Maynard. That would represent a more than 70% drop to Tuesday morning's price of just over $30,000. If Maynard's forecast comes true, it would inflict further pain on Bitcoin and the broader cryptocurrency market, which has seen around $500 billion wiped off its value in the past month. So the next news is, eBay is entering the NFT business with an assist from hockey legend Wayne Gretzky. eBay is getting into NFT, and hockey legend Wayne Gretzky is featured in the first collection from the e-commerce company. The company is launching 13 limited edition digital collectibles in partnership with Web3 platform OneOf, each of which contains a 3D animated rendering of Gretzky making one of his signature moves on the ice. So the next news is, Starbucks will exit Russia after 15 years, closing 130 licensed cafes. Starbucks announced that it will exit Russia. The coffee chain has 130 locations in the country, which account for less than 1% of its annual revenue. Starbucks joins McDonald's, ExxonMobil and British American Tobacco in pulling out of the country completely after the Kremlin invaded Ukraine. So the next news is, Belgium becomes first country to introduce mandatory monkeypox quarantine as global cases rise. Belgium has introduced a mandatory 21-day quarantine for monkeypox patients as cases spread globally. The UK has also urged close contacts of monkeypox patients to self-isolate to stem a recent mysterious outbreak of the disease, which is typically endemic to Africa. The WHO has so far confirmed 92 cases of the disease in 12 countries, with a further 28 suspected cases under review. So the next news is, SpaceX looks to raise $1.7 billion in new funding, boosting its valuation to $127 billion. SpaceX is raising a massive round of fresh funding, CNBC has learned, sending the private company's valuation to about $127 billion. The space venture is looking to bring in up to $1.725 billion in new capital at a price of $70 per share, according to a company-wide email on Friday obtained by CNBC. SpaceX's valuation has soared in the last few years as it raised billions to fund work on two capital-intensive projects, Starship and Starlink. So the next news is, automakers are jacking up prices on electric vehicles to bake in rising materials costs. Prices for battery-related commodities have surged in recent months, and analysts expect them to rise further over the next few years. Electric vehicle makers have already begun passing those higher costs on to their buyers. But some automakers are determined to hold down prices, at least for now. So the next news is, prices are surging, but fans are still paying top dollar to watch live sports. Fans are eager to get out and experience live sports, even as inflation keeps rising everywhere. Demand for sports attendance is usually unresponsive to price changes, said Dennis Coates, a sports economics professor. Work hard, play hard, said one fan at a recent NBA playoff game. I work so I can spend. So the next news is, more people are dying on US roads, even as cars get safer. Here's why it's a tough problem to solve. An estimated 42,915 people died in motor vehicle traffic crashes in 2021, a 10.5% increase from 2020 and the highest rate since 2005. According to federal data. Experts say the increase stems from a combination of factors including reckless or distracted driving, as well as record levels of vehicle performance and weight. Compared to 2019, fatality rates have risen 18%. So the next news is, Oxfam calls for an end to billionaire bonanza, says millions are falling into extreme poverty. There were 573 more billionaires in the world by March 2022 than in 2020, when the pandemic began, Oxfam said in a brief on Monday. On top of that, it estimated that 263 million people could be pushed into extreme levels of poverty in 2022. The organization pointed out that billionaires are now collectively worth $12.7 trillion, equal to nearly 14% of global gross domestic product. So the next news is, the space industry is on its way to reach $1 trillion in revenue by 2040, CETI says. CETI expects the space industry to reach $1 trillion in annual revenue by 2040, with launch costs dropping 95% to unlock more services from orbit. The global space economy's value reached $424 billion in 2020, having expanded 70% since 2010. Despite the optimistic outlook on the space economy's future, CETI emphasized that much about the industry remains speculative. So the next news is, report says SpaceX paid woman over Musk's sex misconduct claim, he denies wild accusations. A report from Business Insider says SpaceX paid a flight attendant $250,000 in severance over a sexual misconduct claim made against CEOs and founder Elon Musk. Musk told the outlet that there is a lot more to this story. Later, he tweeted that wild accusations against him were untrue, although he didn't specify the allegations. The insider report comes as Musk, who is also CEO of Tesla, is engaged in an effort to purchase social media giant Twitter. So the next news is, Hyundai to invest $5.5 billion to build EV and batteries in Georgia. Hyundai Motor on Friday confirmed plans to spend $5.54 billion to build its first dedicated electric vehicle and battery manufacturing facilities in the U.S. The operations are expected to open during the first half of 2025, with an annual production capacity of 300,000 vehicles. The investment is the latest example of a global automaker seeking to establish new supply chains and production facilities in the U.S. to produce electric vehicles.